Have you ever heard someone say, "Oh, it's just a little bit of pudding. It won't hurt"? Well, this seemingly harmless thought, so common among the elderly and even encouraged by children and grandchildren, can be more dangerous than you imagine. What few people know is that as we get older, our bodies respond very differently to sugar. That sweet, creamy dessert, which once seemed to bring only pleasure, can become a real trigger for a blood sugar crisis, uncontrolled blood pressure, or even a trip to the hospital. According to the Brazilian Society of Geriatrics, consuming too much simple sugar can triple the risk of hospitalizations in the elderly due to imbalances in the body. And the scariest thing is that it all starts with an innocent sweet on the plate. A small habit that many people don't even realize, but that can cost them dearly. Have you ever been through this? Have you ever heard someone in your family say that a little sweet won't kill you? Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover now may surprise you, and maybe even change the way you look at that dessert after lunch. Because believe me, the danger is much closer than you think. And do you know what worries me the most? Many of these situations could have been avoided with simple information that never arrived in time. That's why I'm here now, talking to you in the most direct and human way possible. Because if this topic has ever made you stop and think, or if you know someone who's always saying that sweets are just a treat, this video is for you. And if at some point you felt insecure when you saw an older family member overdoing it with sugar, or if this story reminded you of someone dear to you, take this moment and leave here in the comments what touched you the most, or what you think about all this. Your experience can help other people who are also going through this doubt. And if the content makes sense to you, click the like button. This really helps the channel grow and take this message to more people who really need to hear it right now. And, of course, subscribe to the channel now so you don't miss the next videos, because there's still a lot of important stuff to share with you, including some foods that are even more dangerous than sugar and that almost no one talks about. We'll talk about that later. When we say that the body changes over time, we're not just talking about gray hair or slower joints. Inside, the transformation is even deeper and often silent. A sweet treat that seemed harmless at 30 can become a real trigger for collapse at 60. This happens because, with age, the metabolism slows down, the liver works harder, and insulin sensitivity begins to decline. The body no longer handles glucose in the same way. It's as if the system loses its efficiency in processing excesses, especially those coming from simple sugars. And there's more. Excess sugar favors the accumulation of visceral fat. The fat that forms around vital organs and is directly linked to the risk of heart attack, stroke, and type 2 diabetes. It may seem like an exaggeration, but this hidden truth is something that many people prefer to ignore. Desserts that bring comfort can also come at a very high price. The immediate feeling of pleasure when eating something sweet hides behind the scenes, a profound biological impact on the body that slowly, almost imperceptibly, undermines health. It's like filling up an old car with adulterated gasoline. You may get a little mileage, but you're destroying the engine from the inside. Many elderly people today face what we call insulin resistance, a state in which the body needs to produce more and more insulin to try to keep blood sugar levels stable. However, this extra effort has a limit, and when it is exceeded, scares ensue: dizziness, fatigue, blood pressure spikes, mental confusion, and in more serious cases, hospitalizations. It is no wonder that doctors call sugar the treacherous candy, because it comes in smiling, but can leave with a high price. And perhaps the most worrying thing about all this is understanding how small decisions, like saying yes to a second dessert, or thinking that just today is okay, can open the way for much bigger consequences. It's not about never eating something tasty again. It's about understanding the impact of these choices on a body that no longer responds as it used to. Because when we change our mindset, we also change our destiny. Now, I want to go even deeper into this subject, because there are three very common desserts in the daily lives of seniors that seem harmless but hide dangerous traps. Comment below. That makes sense to me. If you've ever noticed how these small dietary decisions can affect the health of those you love. Now that we understand how the body ages from the inside and how it deals differently with sugar, it's time to open our eyes to something even more worrying: innocent sweets. Those that seem light, harmless, even recommended by friends or family, but that, in practice, work as disguised traps. And the worst part, they are precisely the favorites of many elderly people. Let's be honest, who has never offered a colorful gelatin thinking they were giving a healthy treat? After all, it's light, right? It doesn't weigh down the stomach. But what no one sees is what goes on behind the scenes of this food. It comes loaded with refined sugar, glucose syrup, artificial colors, and preservatives. It's a stimulus bomb for the pancreas, which is already working with difficulty. The impact of this innocent dessert can be a sudden increase in blood sugar, with symptoms such as weakness, blurred vision, tachycardia, and in more severe cases, disorientation. Another classic example, the famous dulce de leche, that just a little piece after lunch. It looks traditional, cozy, and fond. But behind the creamy texture and the comforting flavor, there is a concentration of sugar that can be dangerous, especially for those who have a history of high blood pressure or have had a heart attack. And here the hidden truth is hard to face. It doesn't matter how small the portion is. The body of the elderly feels the impact much more strongly. Sometimes the problem is not the size of the dose, but rather the frequency, the silent accumulation. And finally, one of the most insidious of all, the fitness or light yogurts sold as healthy options in supermarkets. Many seniors believe they are making a good choice, but this decision, behind the pretty label, reveals a trap. Many of these products are loaded with hidden sugars, thickeners, artificial sweeteners, and ingredients that older bodies cannot process as easily. The result? A rebound effect on blood sugar and blood pressure, which can have serious consequences. These seemingly small choices have a huge impact on the aging process, because it's not just about what we put on our plates, but the mindset with which we choose. There is a silent pattern of consumption that needs to be broken. A true transformation only happens when we understand the reason behind each decision. Now, I want to go even deeper into this subject and tell you a real story that shows how all of this can unfold in the life of an ordinary person. Write in the comments, "I'm on this journey too," if you also believe that every food choice has a much bigger impact than it seems. Donna Nede is 72 years old. She has lived alone since her husband passed away, and she looks forward to Sundays, when her children and grandchildren fill the house with laughter, conversation, and the smell of food. On her youngest grandson's last birthday, she made a point of helping to set the table. She decorated it lovingly, set out the cutlery, and of course couldn't resist the strawberry pie with condensed milk. "It's just a little piece. It won't hurt," she said, smiling, trying to hide the tiredness in her legs. It was a special moment, a celebration. And there, amidst memories and affection, she chose to give in. The decision seemed small, but what no one saw was what happened inside her body in the hours that followed. At first, she felt just a little dizzy. Then she had a persistent headache. Her face started to turn red and her hands were shaking. Donna Nede thought it was just the heat of the crowded house, but it wasn't. It was her blood pressure rising rapidly, silently, and dangerously. Her blood sugar had been out of control for months, even with the medication. The sweet treat in that state of her body was the spark that lit the barrel. That night, she was taken to the emergency room with a hypertensive crisis. She spent 2 days in the hospital, and although she recovered physically, something changed there. It wasn't just the shock. It was the emotional impact of realizing that often the affection of the people around her is mixed with habits that are harmful, and that transformation begins with awareness. This kind of story happens more often than you might think. And the most painful thing is to see that all of this is born from a simple, seemingly affectionate gesture, but which hides a hidden truth. An elderly person's body no longer responds as it used to, and insisting on ignoring this is like closing your eyes to the behind the scenes of health. It's not about guilt, nor about living in fear. It's about choices. Small decisions, but ones that define an entire journey of well-being and autonomy. Because aging doesn't have to be a downward curve. It can be a phase of lucidity, of care, of strength, but only if your mindset changes. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because what many people forget is that there are also ways to enjoy the meal without putting your health at risk. Comment below. That makes sense to me, if this story touched you in any way. The good news is that getting older doesn't have to mean giving up the pleasure of eating. Quite the opposite. True transformation begins when we change our perspective. Instead of thinking about what's forbidden, it's time to think about what's possible, and more than that, about what's tasty and healthy at the same time. The big change lies in our mindset, understanding that pleasure doesn't have to come with guilt or risks. With smart choices, it's entirely possible to maintain the flavor and delight of food without exposing our bodies to silent dangers. A mashed banana with a little cinnamon can bring that sweet and nostalgic touch of grandma's dessert. A natural yogurt blended with fresh strawberries can turn into a creamy, beautiful, and, most importantly, safe snack. And if you're craving something sweet, there are now natural sweeteners like xylitol or erythritol, which have a minimal impact on blood, sugar levels, and allow you to create incredible recipes. The secret lies in the behind-the-scenes preparation. That's where the difference lies between a choice that builds health and one that sabotages it. But it's not just about food. It's about autonomy, about daily decisions that support a journey of well-being. Because when an elderly person can eat their meals without fear, with ease, they also preserve their independence, their self-esteem, their enjoyment of life. This has a much greater impact than any clinical exam. It's a silent but powerful way of taking care of one's own story. And the best part is realizing that these changes don't have to be radical. They start slowly, with simple substitutions, made with awareness and affection. When we understand that each meal is an opportunity to build health, the dish takes on a new meaning. Eating stops being a risk and becomes a moment of celebration again. And there's no right age to start over. You just have to make the right decision today. Now, I want to go even deeper into this subject and show you that, for many seniors, the biggest challenge is not sugar itself, but the way it is present in family relationships, repeated habits, and old beliefs. Comment below, I want to take care with conscience, if you also believe that pleasure and health can go hand in hand. If you've made it this far, it's because this topic has touched you in some way, and that shows how important it is to be aware of the choices we make, for ourselves and for those we love. So, if this content helped you see something more clearly, like this video, because it shows that it's worth continuing to bring up topics like this. And take the opportunity to comment below. I'm with you until the end, just so I know you were here, following every part of this conversation with attention and interest. If this type of content resonates with you, subscribe to the channel. Here we talk in a simple, direct, and respectful way about the behind-the-scenes of health, the truths that almost no one talks about, and the small decisions that can transform our journey. And since you're here, there's a video here that complements everything we talked about today. Click and stay with me there. The next part of this conversation may be even more revealing.